We are going to have to act if we want to live in a different world.
Welcome to EdgeCast number 13.
Oh boy.
I'm
Can't
Victor
wait.
Von Zoom, your host, and with me is Garam.
I like to make two noises.
And
There we go. I'm done.
That was 3, you fuck.
Suede.
I can count. Come on. Think I can't count? 3? I can. You're a liar.
We have more than 3 topics this time, obviously. Do we want to start with...
Oh shit, I can't count that high.
Well, are we going to start with news and geopolitics, drama and sociopolitics, or philosophy?
Should we just start with the one that everyone's going to want us to talk about, which is Charlottesville?
I guess. So...
Yes, let's do the topic that's been done to death.
Which
is exactly why I cocked the rifle, because we need to kill this thing once and for all. Because apparently it hasn't been already killed yet, somehow.
I mean, it's not done until Joe Rogan weighs in on it, and he did. So, I guess it's done, but... Look, man, I'm just seeing how long until we say the words Karl Popper and wait for Suede to go But, so Charlottesville, what is your guys' take on it?
Congratulations, assholes in universities who have been pushing this entire identity politics and white guilt, privilege, whatever the fuck you want to call it. You've created the monster you were trying to fight, and you should all be fucking ashamed of yourselves for abusing children the way you have been abusing children.
But Garam, it's about the Nazis. And
yes,
about
and
how Trump won't condemn them. Or something.
Well, he did condemn them and the Antifa guys, so I'm happy. In fact, there was a clip on CNN where they had the interviewer had a panel of, I think it was about 6 or 8 people, and she asked the panel, so is any of you actually upset about Trump's response to the Charlottesville thing? And they kind of just looked at one another, and eventually somebody piped up and said, no, we think it was fine.
Yep. That's what I figured. A lot of it sounds like just fake hype they're coming up with.
Absolutely. I think most Americans turned on the TV and they saw 2 sides of the same coin. They saw hatred on both sides, and they heard Trump come out and say, both sides were terrible, but, maybe not everyone on both sides were actually terrible people. # not all. And, it's a fairly typical response to this sort of thing now. So it's kind of hard to blame Trump, because his response, I thought, was actually rather similar to often what's happens now with terrorist attacks. People blame the Muslim community at large for a variety of issues, and then the media comes out and all the politicians come out and say, oh, we condemn everyone who are the terrorists, we condemn the people who are blaming the Muslim community for this, but # not all, everyone's terrible. It's the same response coming from a different political party over a different issue, but ultimately I think the rhetoric is fairly similar.
Suede?
No, yeah, it's people are just getting outraged for the sake of getting outraged.
At the end of the day, I highly doubt the average American walks by the statue of Robert E. Lee and goes, what was a great idea? Slavery. We need slavery again. No, nobody does that. And if you think the average American does that, you belong in a mental asylum.
I can agree with that. I mean, I know our acquaintance Braving Ruin was there, as well as some other people, and they were saying that, the cops were basically under orders to do it. That whole thing was really strange, and an exercise of how the police have been basically under orders to ignore a lot of the shit going on.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was the problem in Berkeley, was the police receiving stand-down orders, and it was the same case in Charlottesville. And I think in Boston, there was some of the police acted strangely in some circumstances, though that might have been simply because the crowd got too big for them to control.
Yeah. I wonder what it'd be like if something like that happened here in New Orleans.
Well, I can tell you one thing: a whole lot of Black Lives Matter activists would have been accidentally beaten up by Antifa, just like in Boston, which was, of course, the immediate follow-up to that. But
actually, here it'd probably be like a whole lot of Black Lives Matter activists would be beaten up by other black people.
One of
And
the
then
hilarious.
the cops would beat up everybody because we have like the best riot cops in the world. So,
Really?
Mardi Gras is a hell of a drug, dude.
Just about to say, I'm sure there's some like soccer in the UK. I'm sure there's like Liverpool, like they have an entire division of the police dedicated to just
Soccer riots.
Just soccer riots.
The goddamn Chavs are at it again. But so moving on. I mean, like you said, Charlottesville's done this, so we might as well move on. There's nothing we can really say about it that'll be as insightful.
You were
as
talking
anything.
about the media and the hype, and that was a comment to the Boston rally was the immediate follow up to that, and the media is out there, and I think that just
They're
goes
trying,
to show
but
that
they couldn't get it hyped as much as Charlottesville.
Well, they got a couple thousand. Well, they say 40,000. I have trouble believing that that's a population of a small city. I highly doubt that, but I mean, I'm sure our viewers. If you're looking at the image on YouTube, I'm sure you have better things to be doing right now. Please just listen, our listeners. What was up there? I mean, at the Boston rally, there was a Indian guy running for the Senate as a Republican, and on one side he had somebody holding up like a "No to GMO" sign, and on the other side he was holding up a sign that said "Black Lives Do Matter." Hardly a far right-wing neo-Nazi rally.
Yeah, but they keep trying to characterize it as that because Charlottesville's got them spooked really badly. But at the same time, I'm not entirely sure about that because I think, as others have said before, I'm pretty sure a lot of the guys at Charlottesville might be plants, might be just idiots. Like
I wouldn't.
the Klan
I wouldn't be
members, I could believe. Maybe, but like a lot of the neo-Nazi guys that came out with like actual Nazi flags as opposed to and everything.
The people with the fucking tiki torches,
Yeah,
like that's fucking bullshit. Like that is obviously something that was like planned for some reason. Like the rest of it, I can believe. You know, these stupid fucking idiot, like neo-Nazis and so on, thinking like, oh, Trump won, and they're feeling like energized, like, oh yeah, we're gonna get the Jews, even though. That's absolutely not the thing that Trump ran on.
well, I mean, I'm trying to remember who said it, but somebody, I think it might have been Mr. Metokur, or it might have been,
I don't know.
it might have been Braving Ruin, but one of them said, like, look, it's like, we've seen it in the past with, like, Waco and all the cults and everything. Like, the FBI infiltrates everybody. They find a way. So I'm pretty sure, as far as Charlottesville goes, it's like if that wasn't Antifa doing something, the FBI was there, like knowing, like at least had a plant there, knowing something was going on.
I wouldn't be too surprised, and I'd also point out the fact that U.S. law enforcement wasn't getting involved is a good indication that there weren't any plans to get violent.
Yeah, but
The violence was fairly spontaneous.
fairly. I mean, the stuff with the helicopter was weird because I don't know how that was blamed on anything.
I thought it was just a mechanical thing, but it was, of course, the media. What they do every time something unexpected happens is they start fear-mongering.
Yep. And then, aside from that, there was the car, which, don't we know now that was actually an Antifa member that got spooked by other Antifa members?
I had pretty much, personally, I'd written off the car as just being a lone actor. The guy was a individual. It wasn't a planned thing. It wasn't a group of people coming together and planning this. It was just one dude on his own that just fucking something.
Doing something fucking stupid, yeah. Well, let's move on. Like you said, this has been done to death, so it's not really that big of a deal for us because we've been so behind the game lately.
You know what else is done? Bannon.
Yeah, that was weird because he got fired, and then everyone thought that it was like a planned thing because he was immediately like, "I'm going back to the media and I'm going to go fuck people up because I'm going to war for Trump," and then now like suddenly Breitbart is turning out anti-Trump articles. So
yeah, who knows?
I mean, Bannon's kind of a strange figure, so.
Like, we really can't, like, we can only suppose what's actually happening in the background a lot of the time, just because we're just not privy to what they're actually saying or what the actual plan is, if there even is one at all.
Yeah, and we never really have been, but like the whole West Wing
Yeah,
being shut
like,
down and everything,
yeah.
It's like, the media forced his hand on that one. So it's
Yeah, but what I'm trying to say is like all the conclusions we come to are just like deductive. Like we don't have we have no real way of confirming them apart from just like additional information coming out that either like makes it seem more likely or less likely.
True. As far as the rest of this is concerned, I guess we'll just have to wait and see on him, see if there's any more news on it or anything. Maybe he's trying to curry favor with some other people, or it's a false flag, or he has some kind of insane plan, or he's no longer in control at all. But we'll find out. Something I did want to talk to you about, Swade, and you brought up to me before, but this also is really important in the light of Hurricane Harvey. The water problem that China's having. And
yeah.
So you want to talk about that?
Well,
no,
I mean, like,
I don't want to talk about it. Fuck China.
I mean, kind of, yeah, but like, it's China environmentally. It's just a complete shit show at this point. There is just way too much to cover in like a single,
segment
podcast. Yeah.
Well, you want to just like try to summarize the current water problem?
Yeah, I haven't heard about this one.
China is running out of water. And
somehow.
Yeah. They're running out of fresh water, is what it is.
Who's stealing it?
The desert that they
the Tibetans. The Tibetans.
Yeah.
Tibetans.
Yeah, the Tibetans.
Obviously.
Okay, but, like, China is desertifying. They blew up a mountain range. The Gobi Desert is getting bigger. They have pollution everywhere. Like, the Yangtze is just fucked beyond, like, any possibility of repair within our lifetime.
The Sweet Sour River.
Yeah, the Sweet and Sour River.
I've been told you just do not eat food from China because it's just loaded with heavy metals at this point.
Yeah, no, it's... But the thing is, because their population, like, is starting to move to urban areas, because they're starting to demand, better food, better, luxuries and so on, as they're a developing country, as they should, to be honest. They're having to try and make more with less. They're trying to create more and more with an increasingly, like, diminishing amount of usable land, of a water supply that they have to keep stretching thinner and thinner, not just in terms of like agriculture, but also just use by their citizens.
20% of the world's population, only 7% of the fresh water supply.
Yeah, and it's just going to become even more of a problem. Not just because the Yangtze, in addition to, being polluted as hell, is eventually going to dry up because of, like, the ongoing desertification and just complete ruination of China environmentally. But because as they run out of, land, the amount of the available water goes down as well. Like, it's not just like, oh, well, if more of, like, the, country desertifies, then, they can just focus the water they do have in the remaining parts. No, because the water doesn't, the soil doesn't hold water anymore. It just evaporates in so many parts of it. And, the water it does hold is, completely filthy and disgusting just because of the pollution. The infrastructure they have to transport the water is, horrendously out of date, and they tend to, they tend to put it more towards agricultural use, which means that, just because they're desperate to try and keep their agriculture going, despite their, complete mismanagement of it, which means that their own population is running out of, drinking and, bathing water and other things like that, for them to use, because all the rivers are polluted. Their only real option is eventually going to be, they're going to have to start using seawater and filtering seawater into usable water on a massive scale, and that's not feasible at all, really, with the way their industry is and the amount of resources that would require. They would just end up polluting, the ocean by just putting the putting the seawater filtering plants by it, but then putting tons of coal burning power plants.
I have been to desalinization
all up and down the coast.
Yeah, I've been to desalinization plants, and those things are horrifically inefficient because we haven't. Nobody's put any money into using them since the Second World War.
Just to put it this way, water has the highest specific energy, I think, of any common substance. That is, the amount of energy to raise water by 1 degree Celsius compared to other materials, like, let's say, a block of lead.
No.
It's incredibly. My understanding is it's incredibly energy intensive.
No, that's actually not the case. What it is that water, the basis of the calorie. The calorie is the energetic unit required to raise, I think it's a gram of water by 1 degree Celsius.
I thought that was a joule.
Joule is for mechanical energy. A calorie is for chemical energy.
Yeah.
Right? Am I right? Look,
Yeah.
I'm the only one here who doesn't have a hard science degree.
They can be converted between. It's easy. But, joule is more for, mechanical and, kinetic and, to a lesser extent, electrical energy. And other kinds of energy. Electromagnetic. Joule is more generic than calorie. Calorie is, it's mostly used for chemical energy. And it's just that, the basis of, how much energy you need to heat 1 gram of some material by 1 degree Celsius, 1 degree centigrade, is a certain multiple of calories. And the reason for that is because water is just so plentiful and easy to find, at least in Europe and so on, that it's really easy to just figure out, from not having any kind of calibrated equipment, to just find a basis for okay, well, we heated up this gram of water by 1 degree Celsius with this much energy, so this much energy is 1 calorie, that kind of thing. It's meant to be the kind of thing that you can easily work out without having already calibrated instrumentation on hand. That's the whole basis of the metric system. Meters can be determined by the arc of from the equator to the North Pole or something like that. I forget how it's actually worked out. But the issue of desalinization is, firstly, you lose lots of minerals, right? When you desalinate water, it's just pure water. So you're not going to have any of the actual minerals and so on that are normally in normal fresh water in that, which means you can have problems therein with using that water for agriculture.
Yeah, that's the biggest issue with a lot of well, that's not just an issue with desalinization and everything else, but when it comes to agriculture, the biggest problem that we have with modern agriculture as far as irrigation is concerned,
yeah, it sounds like
as far as irrigation is concerned, is that it's a geological problem and an energy issue because a lot of the power plants and a lot of the especially in places like China, where their electrical infrastructure is like 40 years behind the rest of the world. The more industrial a country is, usually the harder time it has with agriculture when it comes to areas where it needs to irrigate, because humans have a tendency to build cities in places that are floodplains. On coastal areas next to fresh water that's also next to trade routes.
Yeah, because it's easily available.
It's easily available, but then when they build the city and they dam up the river, they dam up the wetlands, they dam up the bogs, and they prevent the floodplain from existing, which causes all the nutrients to stay in the rivers, which then just either builds up and it causes the river to dam elsewhere and turn into a tributary, or usually just flow into the ocean where you can't.
It's really humans just not planning as a group, but just as individuals. It's just externalities and neighborhood problems.
Yeah, and
like what I was going to say is, obviously rainwater, that's pure water, more or less, unless you live in China.
But in China you can't count on that, because not only have they polluted the local section of their atmosphere, but I was trying to say a big issue with China.
Well, I said what I was saying is actually not that. What I was saying is that the reason that not having just pure water, but water with other things in it is better agriculturally is just look at how much better things will grow by floodplains and rivers, as opposed to just a big lake of just standing stagnant water.
Yeah, that's the issue, is that they really
need to have it moving
their
the
country,
nutrients around.
Their country, as large as it is isolated. It's incredibly isolated, and they've isolated themselves because they have the Pacific. Everywhere that is not Western China is either it's surrounded by mountains, the largest mountain range in the world, one of the worst deserts in the world, or the Pacific Ocean, and the biggest issue, as far as how they've done everything, even before you get into the pollution issue, is that they kept pushing all of their agricultural infrastructure west, and then into the heartland of China, which was some of the few zones that they had, southern China, and everywhere, and then polluted the shit out of the area so that those places can't, so they keep moving closer to urban centers that are totally ill-equipped because they built their cities like crap, where they have dammed up all the rivers everywhere, all the rivers tributaries every which way, so there's no new sediments, no new nutrients coming down any of the rivers to go anywhere, and that's a problem
it's
that
not
the US
cycling the nutrients either.
And it's a problem that the U.S. has been dealing with for a while now, with how we treated the Mississippi, where we built this giant fucking city on the mouth of the Mississippi, and then wondering why all of these hurricanes keep wrecking the shit out of the Gulf Coast, which we'll get to in a second. Because while we're essentially just accelerating the erosion of all the swamps, and it's look, I know nobody likes swamps. I know the conservative polling line for it is why are they calling it a wetland now? They want us to think it's better than a swamp, and it's dude, it's a swamp. It's a shit.
It has an actual reason to exist,
but it has a reason to exist. Stop pretending that ecology is not science. And just as far as the rest of this goes, the thing is not only is their electrical infrastructure is 40 years behind the mean, but they also if they were to even try to figure out how to supplement the irrigation system by using desalinization plants, like I said earlier, they haven't really been advanced since the Second World War, because we haven't really needed to use them since since the battles around the atolls, and as a result, the majority of them, especially the ones that China would have access to, don't really produce just, water that has the salt removed. It's water that has everything removed. You can't make a farm with distilled water.
Yeah. And you just can't. Just for a while it'll help, but it'll eventually leach out all of the stuff you need in the soil.
Yeah,
and then you'll need to start, adding fertilizers and so on.
And then you got problems if you keep
Yeah.
on adding fertilizers. You're going to turn the
and like then,
soil
like
salty
that's
anyways.
the problem
and
with
we're-
China.
And
you
we're
know?
we're
It's-
straight up, and I mean the rest of the, not to even mention the fact that the rest of the world is straight up running out of decent fertilizer, because like the basis for a lot of fertilizer that nobody knows about is like all the phosphates that everyone keeps fucking breaking into cavern systems to steal from bat guano, to the point where it's like, no, you're wrecking the ecosystem of the caves. We'll have places that'll collapse in on themselves.
Out in Saskatchewan and Manitoba, of course, agriculture is a huge industry. What follows up agriculture right behind that is potash,
Yeah,
which is used for fertilizer.
yeah, potash. It's like you need potash, you need phosphates, you need phosphorus, and
It's so fucking important. It's a major national.
Did we ever
sport.
talk about like bottleneck elements?
yeah, there's that too. Oh
Yeah.
god, like China. I'm in this very, very dark, backhanded way. I'm kind of glad it exists, because it's a perfect example of what happens when you fuck with the environment and don't actually like know what you're doing. When like if you fuck with the environment and don't listen to people when they say, "Hey, tone down the fucking of the environment."
Yeah, like you could do it a little bit, just don't do it that much.
Yeah,
Come on.
because here's the thing: it's like, oh well, no, most the layman would say, oh well, if desalination plants don't work, why don't you just collect rainwater? Rainwater's fresh. It's like, yes, that is correct, except in China, where they have fucking like raped a hole in the atmosphere out of smog, and like, well, not or Australia's the one that raped
100% acid rain all day, every day.
Yeah, and that stuff kills
Like, if you
plants
see
even
it's
faster
raining,
than salt water.
Like if you see it's raining, put on your fucking hazmat suit. Like, goddamn.
And they won't fucking take responsibility for any of this
No, of course not.
because they're communists.
Well, that and they're in a very
It
awkward
has- it has
position
nothing-
with their current
More
government.
importantly
It's not
than
that
that,
they're
it's because they're
communists, it's that,
retards.
like, yeah, it's just that they're fucking assholes. Like, and they're like the kind of communists where, they have a centralized government, and if the government ever admits it's wrong, that destroys faith in it, and then suddenly everyone second guesses all their decisions.
There's a saying from Chairman Mao: when you're riding a tiger, it's kind of hard to get off.
Yeah, exactly.
And right now,
I don't know if
because-
that's an actual
because-
saying, but
Well, I don't know, but you're absolutely right that right now they're riding a tiger, and the only thing keeping the Communist Party in power right now
is the fact that people in China don't realize how bad they've made things.
Yeah, so long as the people in China get their bread in circuses, and there's or even if they aren't getting their bread in circuses, there's a reasonable expectation that in the near future they will get.
Yeah, I mean, in that perspective,
that can't last forever.
That reminds me, Garam, that's actually kind of a good thing, just because, like, so we're facing and this kind of relates to something we'll talk about later, but we're facing this gigantic push in the West, and a lot of the parts of the rest of the world that aren't even the West, of internet censorship, right? Like, just mass internet censorship all the time, forever, on all the social media. They just want to get rid of everything that ever goes against the normies, right?
Yeah.
China was the first place where that was like mass media censorship was really that successful, and they're failing at it. So they're failing at everything on every front so bad right now that great firewall that everyone calls it is gonna come down. Is gonna come down in the near future, and I'm pretty sure that once it does, mass media censorship will never be able to succeed again. And
yeah, another thing is, really, it's terrible what's happening in China. But if and when things all come tumbling down, that kind of shock and like that kind of wake up call of like these kind of systems just don't work.
Yeah,
I think will actually be kind of like helpful to Chinese.
I hope that the
like
media
culture in the long term.
I hope at that point
that they won't ever put their faith in these kinds of like authoritarian assholes again.
Well, not just that. Like, I hope that by that point, once it all comes tumbling down, that the alternative media is stronger, or that the conventional media is at least a little less retarded. Because even even a modicum of information actually gets out into the mainstream about this. Like, never mind people like us that actually watch stuff like China Uncensored or bother talking to people on the internet through VPNs
or to do actual independent research.
Yeah,
people like us that will spend like half an hour looking at meteorology charts just to be like, what the fuck is going on here?
Even just half an hour, like, fuck.
Yeah.
Like, and it's just, but, like, if even a modicum, 5 to 20% of that ever gets coverage in the mainstream news or the mainstream alternate news on enough bandwidth, so to speak, that people start seeing it en masse, that'll be fucking crazy, because there will be so many people that'll be shocked. Like, China has this reputation, especially on the Chans, especially on, alternate information sources that are, less conventional and normal, about having, these people that are just totally fucking dehumanized because how they live is so horrible. Like, death in China is a preferable alternative to living. Just because, there's so many different pressures for that on so many different levels. And I could explain that, but we don't have time. But, there's, if you, a bunch of normies saw that on Fox News or something, reports on that, maybe even once a day or a few times a week or something. After that happened, shit would go sideways so fast for the media and people that want to have any kind of control and censorship.
Like Chomsky would be shitting a brick.
Yeah, but I don't know if Chomsky even shits anymore. But
it's just hardened into a brick the shape of his colon. It's never coming out.
He blames George Bush every time he has to go to the toilet. But
no, it's within the next 2 decades, I'll predict people will not even be realizing China's a paper tiger. They'll realize that they have a coming humanitarian crisis, the likes of which the world has never seen.
We haven't seen an ecological problem like this since the fucking Pleistocene era.
Yeah. And not even that, but how do you deal with a billion people and change who suddenly have they have no food, they have no water, they're all dying in a man-made desert, a continent away.
Yeah, and we'll have drones and cameras and journalists that we hope, will finally go there, and people will stop seeing China, in the words of some Anon, as wise old men and misty mountains, Confucius and fortune cookies and all this other shit. They will see the mist roll by and look at how we turned a third of the largest continent in the earth into Mad Max.
Yeah,
and
and it's just people say, how are we going to deal with the North Korean population where it's 20 million people, because they're uneducated and they're starving
medieval,
and
like you said, medieval peasants.
Yeah, they are the functional, and I mean as in how they're capable of functioning mentally and so on. They are the functional equivalent of medieval peasants. That is the limit of their physical and mental development.
You're telling me Fallout 3 wasn't set in Washington, D.C. It was actually set in Beijing.
No, I'm saying that the Fallout 3... I'm saying Fallout 3 was too optimistic.
Yes, that's true.
But how do you deal with integrating 20 million people back into South Korea if North Korea were to fall, and you have all these people who just can't function in a modern developed country? Well, how do you deal with it when there's 50 times that many people or more? Actually more like 60 times that many people.
Yeah,
exactly what they're doing in Venezuela.
No country on Earth will be able to handle or even willing to accept a significant fraction of China's population if and when they collapse. And no one will be we won't have any real way to feed them or to help them stay afloat in a way that will allow even half of the country's population to really to eke out a reasonable living.
Straight up economic destruction on the molecular
hundreds
level.
Of millions of people starving to death and dying of dehydration.
in real time.
In the streets of Beijing and, like, Shanghai.
While the government officials go off and hide somewhere in Tibet.
Yeah.
No, they're just going to move to fucking Canada.
They'll move to fucking Vancouver.
At that point, you'd hope that that Canada would just let themselves become a vassal of the United Kingdom again. At that point, just so the Gurkhas could go in and finish the job. Because I don't know if you've been paying attention to the stuff in Tibet. We've talked about it before, but the Tibetans of the Nepalese and the Tibetans of all varieties are just absolutely fucking done with the Chinese.
Yeah, we're gonna see Xi Jinping running for mayor of Vancouver in 20 years or something. That's gonna be fucking wonderful, won't it?
He's gonna win. He won't be running for
Battle of Anchorage when.
God damn it!
Gas the oil wells.
This is all just fucked.
But
this is. It almost feels like just it's some kind of fucking stupid some kind of stupid dystopian novel or something.
But it might be the first time in history we'll ever see a war, a modern war be waged with the primary concern of population control as opposed to being one of the secondary ones.
I mean, but it's this is like an extinction event for an entire country that's just happening so slow no one has noticed. And not even an entire country, the entire world. I don't want to be my climate change, my global warming. It's not even about global warming, even if that is also a major part of it. It's about, the ongoing desertification of the world, the loss of ability to renew, renew agricultural land and so on. Just the complete failure on so many different levels and in so many different ways of the ability of the environment to support life.
Yeah. And I mean, a good example of this is what you talked to me about when it came to Hurricane Harvey in Texas. You want to tell Garam about the watershed?
Oh, yeah. No, the watershed in Texas, right? If they managed to divert most of and I know it seems like they didn't because Houston is fucking flooded.
Yeah, but fuck Houston anyway.
They managed to divert most of the water in such a way that it didn't completely flood all of the surrounding areas, and it's more or less moving out towards the ocean. But if that hadn't happened, and if, for instance, the dams had overflowed or burst.
Yeah, they were saying on the news just today it was whatever your environmental, I forget the acronym, but they were saying this is officially a 1 in 1,000 year flood event.
Yeah, I mean, Hurricane Harvey was fucking strong because a lot of hurricanes cannot actually make it that far over land.
So here's my response to all of this okay, if this is a 1 in 1,000 year flood event.
What the fuck was Katrina?
Yeah, what the fuck was
Rita?
It's 1 in 1,000 years based on existing statistical data.
Yes.
What they what they're not inferring is that the statistics have changed because the situation has changed.
Yes, the environment's changed, but here's my response.
It's not even global warming though. The Gulf streams have been completely diverted and warped out of their normal route just by the sheer force of China's pollution alone.
Yes, yes. But what I was about to say is, think about it this way. How many... Okay, this is a 1 in 1,000 years, so let's say this is a freaking biblical Noah flood level event. How many people have died?
20.
Exactly. Hats off to the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers and everyone.
It was actually tons of civilian volunteers, and it was the Coast Guard. What the Army Corps of Engineers did was they diverted the flood water through a different dam so that it wouldn't flood the entire area. That wasn't about stopping people from dying. That was about stopping the land from being ruined. like the Coast Guard, and then like thousands of civilian volunteers at this point, like all the like the Cajun Navy. You have people coming in from Louisiana on like airboats, like to get people out of Houston. And actually, like some of them are even getting like killed by looters trying to rescue people like stuck in their homes.
Yeah, because Texans are fucking pieces of shit.
Yeah,
but whatever.
Like
I'll let my statesman. I will stand by as my statesman gets slaughtered by you foolish cow people. Look, man, I hate Texas. I know it's important. I know it's important for the Democrats not to win, but seriously, fuck Texas. If it weren't for that,
I don't want the Texans to win either. That's the thing, Like, come on, you guys.
It's like, can you move all the Republican votes like somewhere else, please? Like, seriously, like
no, dude, no, it's no. Never.
First, all right, we just give me one nuclear weapon and a drill. I'll go to the San Andreas Fault, and then we no longer need Texas to ever win a presidential election.
Yeah,
right?
we no longer need them to offset California.
Yeah.
Why don't we just give Texas to Mexico, and we just give California to the ocean?
Yeah, pretty much. Like, seriously, the Mexicans would probably do a better job in Texas than the Texans would. Like,
all I'm gonna say
they did for a while.
All I'm gonna say is, to all our leftist listeners from California, please secede from the union. Just do
exit now.
Move to a different blue state. Just please do that.
Also,
go to Nevada. Nevada's like California, but it's like California light. With more hookers.
Just go live in Nevada. They have more water there. This is a little joke.
Capitalism.
Yeah.
No, I remember my brother's hate group has that one guy in it who's from Death Valley who's like bitching about the one river in his area that is like being used. It's being co-opted by Los Angeles because the city is too big now for its own water, like its original water supply.
Of course, yeah. No, we just gotta go steal all the water from all the other states for like the federal government because we've mismanaged ours to the point that it's illegal to stop rainwater from going into the ground on your own property. You're not allowed to gather rainwater in certain states that are adjacent to California because that water is apparently public property and it needs to go to California.
I mean, there was that ruling from Wyoming where that like precedented that the state technically owns the wind, and therefore windmills are illegal.
Yeah, no, because wind is a finite resource or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a finite resource. If we keep letting China fuck with the Gulf Streams, maybe.
I mean, maybe. It's okay. We're gonna get like.
Do you guys not understand yet how bad this is? We're going to run out of wind!
We're going to power our...
And then the world
actually going to run out of wind.
The world will stop spinning! This is how deep the Oh god. Alright, it must have been his connection. This is how bad it'll be with the communists. They'll fucking, like, before they die, they'll declare war on every other country on Earth, and then while their entire population is conscripted to fighting it, they'll dig a tunnel to the core of the planet and try to fucking hook up a kinetic generator to it or some shit.
Yeah, like we're just gonna use the Earth's core to power our desalinization plants.
Yeah,
that's what we're gonna do.
You thought Robert Heinlein understood shiznotech. You ain't seen shit. Chinese sci-fi writers don't even write; they just believe. But
the whole watershed thing was like, if like the Buffalo Bayou had like all the dams and so on that it has, if they had actually broken in a way that was like not controlled by the Army Corps of Engineers, who they're good at their jobs, that they know what they're doing. If it hadn't been for that, and if the hurricane had gotten to the point of overflowing, which it nearly did, if it overflowed the dams, it would have flooded the entire watershed around Houston out for like 100 miles or so, maybe. I forget what the actual estimates were, but that entire area would have just been washed out to sea. And like all the nutrients and all the topsoil and stuff, like it would have just turned like not even to like a marsh. It would just become like a fucking like salt flat.
Yep.
And you would no longer be able to grow anything there
Which
for
is
decades.
Which is
if not
extremely.
centuries.
It's not even. That's not even like. All right. So as much as everyone thinks that like Texas is like, oh, it's the old West. It's like a desert with tumbleweeds.
No, it's
and
not.
cows.
It's actually really fertile. That's why they live there.
Yeah. Like here's the thing. A problem with Texas is that, like, half of it, all right, a fourth of its economy is based on oil, and another fourth of its economy is based on beef. Like, there's a massive chunk of the economy of Texas that's based on beef that cascades to the rest of the U.S. because I don't know about you guys, but U.S. really likes their steaks. Americans really fucking like their steaks and their burgers. Yeah. And, like, if
other beef products.
And if you did that, like, you would straight up destroy like several different sectors, micro sectors of like the food service industry and like the agricultural industry as far as
like suddenly you'd see McDonald's like doubling the price for a burger for like the next year and a half.
Like you would and that would have a cascading effect where like all these cattle herds would be driven. They would be driven even farther west and then like north, and then suddenly you have all this money leaving Texas. And not only does that have political ramifications, but then like, you know, suddenly the Midwest is having to compensate for this massive boom in agricultural money that they don't actually have the room for because their states are not like a lot of the sections of their states aren't good for cattle herding. Because, you know, Americans are retarded and we killed all the
cattle
buffalo.
herding, like, ruins the states anyways.
Yeah. And then even worse than that, that cascades to fucking Chile and Argentina and Brazil, where they start deforesting even more of the Amazon to make more room for all the cattle herds that they're going to drive.
Suddenly Americans have, like, we need more beef now.
Yeah.
And, like, the global economy on beef and other famous Texan products, like hats or something. Like suddenly there's just not enough supply to go around. Other countries react, and especially in like South America and so on, they start deforesting. They start trying to have their own like cattle herds.
Yeah. I mean, because like Argentina
they don't even have half the controls.
Oh god.
Yeah, they don't even have half the controls that we do. So they ruin their land even faster than Texas ruined their land.
Like they don't even deforest. They don't even deforest the jungle in like Argentina in like a way that makes sense. They straight up slash and burn like 1,000-year-old growth and like all of these medicinal trees and just shoot tribes in the face like all the time just to be like, we need more cattle herds. And by the way, while we're mentioning Argentina, I'm fucking white.
Oh.
Yeah. It would just be like as they tried to overcome
his mic.
And
the gods of Discord were not pleased.
As they tried to overcome the learning curve, they would just make things even worse. Like Texas getting fucked by like Harvey and the flooding more than it was, which it was very close to being, would have just had a cascading effect that would result in environmental fallout just through like just through economic pressure, you know, the world over. Not to mention, like, you know, the impact on other sectors of the economy. Like, we're suddenly, like, you know, beef futures are down, like, 200%. Or up. Well, they might go up if it's... No. Well, I guess they would go up if it's, like, supply. But then, you know, if it's... No. I don't know what happened. But no, it's like the economy would be completely warped by this event. Just for like months, if not years. It might even lead to another recession. Because you know, Houston is a huge part of the U.S. economy, you know, and like even now, like with all the flooding and so on, you're not going to have people like going back to Houston right away to, you know, resume their jobs.
Yep.
This is going to have a major impact in the coming months.
It's going to take
a major slowdown for like the economic growth.
Just to clean up the mess in a rudimentary way is going to take them months.
Yeah, well, it's a disaster. Like Hurricane Harvey has been a disaster, but the worst part of it is that this sort of thing is going to keep happening. because the environment and the Gulf Stream and so on has all changed in such a way that it makes the situation it's changed the factors involved such that it's easier for hurricanes to form and to go into the Gulf, like the Gulf of Mexico, and then all along the southern American coast and just fuck with us.
Yep.
Hurricane Harvey is just the start of what I think is going to be a very long line of similarly destructive hurricanes. All along the southern coast, all along, the Gulf of Mexico, and then like the southern east coast of the United States.
And we can't stop it because our wetlands have gone to shit.
Yeah, we can't stop it because the wetlands have gone to shit. Because the atmospheric composition, the way that all the air moves around has changed, and because even the ocean currents have changed in response to the change in temperature, like in the change in global temperature. It's a runaway problem, and there's just no easy solution. There might not even be any solution.
We're all gonna die. Come watch some TV.
Yeah,
by TV,
we're gonna die.
Shitty TV show.
Listen to our podcast as we doomsay, and then wait 20 years, and you'll see that things are pretty fucked.
We're all gonna die unless we decide to kill one another in an epic civil war like Dan Harmon.
Yeah, why don't we just kill all the humans and then let the Earth recover, and then we'll evolve like dolphins or something that can walk around.
That was a plot line from Gundam Wing, and I will not stand behind this.
Look, all we need to do is just make that movie Waterworld happen.
Look, man, I don't know how that fucking works, but I don't want to piss into a coffee grinder that can remove the urine proteins from my piss.
Oh god.
Yeah. So, some of this relates to, speaking of water. Last thing we have for geopolitics, unless anyone else thinks of something. The entire government of Venezuela is suing each other over nothing.
Yeah.
And the entire time they still have a water shortage in the middle of the jungle, so,
Yep.
I don't know how to think about this other than communists.
Food shortage and on a farm,
They have a food shortage, they have a water shortage, they have a toilet paper shortage. I'm pretty sure Venezuela has just a shortage of everything at this point.
The government will buy you your own toilet paper, and you will like it. Our solution to the economy: nationalize the grocery stores.
You're surrounded by jungles. You're surrounded by trees. You think there was a pulp and paper industry there. You think they could have made their own fucking toilet paper. But no, they can't even make their own fucking toilet paper.
Nope.
That's a fucked up.
Well,
so yes, they're suing one another, all sorts of things. I mean, at this point, Venezuela is just...
It was like, what?
Can we just call Venezuela a failed state?
The
Can we just call it
executive branch in power
declared
that the legislative branch is no longer constitutional. The legislative branch said no, and now they're just trying to sue each other, and the military is off doing Colombian hookers and blow.
The military is off doing cartel things, as they are wont to do.
Yep, and Colombia's just sitting there in the background licking their lips.
You just hear them smacking in the background.
Just jerking off in the woods to this whole thing, waiting for their time, for prime time.
Well, Colombia's looking at this, I think, on two.
Our time has come.
So we...
They're going to be looking at this in two ways. One is they've been pissed off with Venezuela for a while over groups like FARC, and Venezuela sort of tacit support for them. The FARC rebels go between Venezuela, back in Colombia, then go back to Venezuela, go back into Colombia pretty routinely.
And the entire time they keep changing name tags. And everyone just calls them freedom fighters.
So that's one. I mean, they have a troubled history with Venezuela and its politics. And the other problem is the Americans, I'm sure, would love to deal with Venezuela. the Americans do not like buying oil from the Middle East as much as they might pretend they're buddy with a
our
lot
politicians say that, but the U.S. is going to buy it regardless because it allows us to have some modicum of control over Saudi Arabia.
Yes. So here's the problem: is that also gives Saudi Arabia a degree of control of them, and I don't think they like that. So, anyways, Venezuela has the biggest oil reserves in the Western Hemisphere, if memory serves.
Yeah.
They've got a shit ton of oil that the United States wants. The United States is constantly having to play nice with people it doesn't want to play nice with. So, you can imagine for the Americans, geopolitically, that if they had a second source of oil that was very close, they could go back to the Middle East and groups like OPEC and say, well, either lower your prices or we'll just buy it from the Venezuelans because they're right fucking there. So it at least gives them at least something geopolitically to play off of. Problem: the Venezuelans do not like the Americans. Even the people who hate the current Venezuelan government hate the Americans even more. The Americans cannot get involved directly in Venezuela. How the fuck would America get involved in Venezuela then? It would work through an intermediary. Who's their best friend in the region? Colombia.
And the CIA is laughing the entire time.
Yeah. CIA, Colombia, both start with C.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure
Is that a
Colombia is just licking
coincidence?
its lips because anything the Americans want to do with Venezuela is going to result in Colombia being handed fat stacks of cash.
Yeah, the CIA is like, we can't wait to get out all of our, like, 1980s cocaine dealers. Like, just take them out of retirement. And be like, all right, we got a new job for you.
Fucking CIA is terrible.
Yeah,
all right,
it's gonna happen, though.
It is, and it makes me sad. So, let's get to the part of the podcast that people actually listen to.
What,
Drama and
people listen to this?
sociopolitics. Okay. Mr. Metokur proposed D.A.D.
Dad.
Yes. Digitally assured destruction.
The
Let's
dumbest
just-
thing he has ever proposed.
Yes. Really
It
fucking...
is amazing.
Yeah,
Hey.
I thought it was a great idea until I realized that the problem with digitally assured destruction is there's only one person with nukes and the launch codes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And further than that, like, I think he fundamentally doesn't understand how corporatism and lobbying works at all. Like,
yeah,
Cause
he really
he's like, because he's acting like these entities are fundamentally opposed to one another. It's like, no.
They'll just reach an agreement between each other that fucks you over and doesn't fuck themselves over.
Yeah, and then they'll just keep making money. And I mean, like, what are you gonna do? Say, oh, well, they have to essentially pay bribes to the ISPs, but it's like, well, these companies also, like, Google owns infrastructure. Google already doesn't care about half of this.
Google is already starting to, like...
Well, and one of the places it owns
horizontally
infrastructure
expand.
in is Houston,
Or
so
vertically
ha, Google,
expand.
suck it. But
Yeah, fuck you.
Google already owns infrastructure, so it doesn't give a fuck about this in certain sectors. And, like, even then, it's like, ISPs are big, but ISPs also, like, have, considering that they're like quasi-utilities, they have responsibilities to the government,
Yeah.
taxes and shit, that makes them relatively, like, in a way, they don't have the motility that a lot of these other companies do. And these other companies also have a shitload of social media power that they can just pay money to fucking like, they have enough money that they'll just be able to lobby the ISPs into the corner. It's like, what are the ISPs going to do? Just lobby harder than them when they make less money anyway? Like, go fuck yourself.
The point is handing everyone... Thinking that you're going to create a nuclear standoff situation only works when you got two groups which fundamentally oppose each other with the capability of annihilating one another.
Well, like,
So it's a retarded idea. I like what I've been hearing. Have you been watching Tim Pool's podcasts?
no, I have not.
He's got a lot of hacker friends, and something they've been working on is blockchain encryption.
I see.
And the idea would be it sounds like groups like Minds and a few other Gab AI are, and this might be why they're being all of a sudden attacked. Gab in particular, being attacked by the media. It's not so much the people on Gab that might be why they're being attacked. It might be what Gab's working on, which is blockchain encryption and distributed computing.
Or the distributed website hosting is, I think,
Yes.
what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which
Haven't we talked about that before?
no,
Yes,
we
but-
haven't, but we probably should. Just
Oh,
because, like,
I
Gab
think we might have
started-
talked
Gab's
about it
working
off
on
the podcast.
Mine's work, yeah, we might have. But like mainly one of the big things was someone who's doing something related to it is BitChute, which BitChute looks right now, and this kind of touches on some of the other stuff. BitChute and it looks better than VidMe because VidMe is fucking retarded. Like as soon as everybody on YouTube was like, let's go to VidMe instead of YouTube because Google's gay, VidMe immediately goes, oh, you need to verify your account if you want to have over 30-minute videos, only one upload a day, blah, blah, blah. And, like, just out of nowhere was, like, all this stupid shit. And then BitChute's like, hey, we're like YouTube except cooler and more. We're like the young, like, we're like the young hip version of YouTube. Also, we use peer-to-peer, like, they essentially, like, stream videos via torrents. Like through distributed web hosting, and it's like, okay, that's fucking cool. Like,
yeah, good. But so this is a theory I've heard. I'm not sure I completely agree with it, but that's the real reason why they got attacked. Had nothing to do with what's been on it. If they are able to get enough capital and complete this research, and they put it out there,
I mean, it's not as if they even really need to complete the research. They just, if things go down for them, is it not open source?
Well, yeah, if they make it open source, then
just put it up on GitHub or something. Just let everyone else,
then
GitHub
suddenly gets sued.
Yeah, or let's just put it wherever, and like some version control software or something. That'll be completed in like a fucking month.
But point is, for a lot of these monolithic companies, this ability to distribute all the hosting would be a bit of a doomsday scenario. They'd never be able to censor people completely. I mean, if Google is truly, as it looks like, being run by a bunch of people who are authoritarian in nature
and have fundamentally no idea what they're doing.
Yeah, and fundamentally no idea, but want to control people, the ability to be able to proliferate information in a way that it's impossible to stop.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a doomsday scenario for them. That's basically game fucking over. So what they're really trying to do is stop the game fucking over argument, and so far they're
monopolists. That's just what they are.
Yeah.
Like Google they want to be monopolists. They're just having to pretend to be like oligopolists instead.
Well, or another theory is the iron law of bureaucracy, as we talked about. Well, Google started off as being a company that wanted a free and open market. As time has gone on, it's been co-opted by a bunch of people.
It wanted that when it started out because that was to its benefit. Because it could make more money by competing and growing. Now it's the opposite way. Now it only makes enough money to support itself as long as it restricts, other people from competing.
Yes, certainly that's another the theory of rational
strategy. Yeah, the strategy changes to suit its interests. That has nothing to do with like whether they actually believed it. They only believed it as long as it was beneficial for themselves.
Yep, certainly that is another valid theory about what's going on.
And like what I mean is like on an organizational level, at least.
Yep. No, not going to argue.
People will just rationalize whatever is in their best interest as ethical.
Nope. I'm not going to disagree with that one. It's definitely another distinct possibility.
Guys, look, you don't have to agree or disagree for the audience. All the ANCAPs left the minute you said, the minute you started talking about them becoming monopolists once they got to the top.
So, what I was about to say? Oh, right. So,
come back, ANCAPs. It's monopolies can only exist with government intervention or something, even though corporations also.
So, quick question here. You wrote down Edge and Discord at the very end there.
Yeah.
Firefox, Chrome, Edge, and Discord.
Yeah, there's a problem. Discord is slightly different than that. Discord is now searching through servers for hate speech, and when I say searching, they're basing it off of reports, because once again, none of these people have any idea what they're doing. So even with all of this fucking pilfered software that they got from the
NSA or whatever,
the
who knows?
NSA, and probably the Candid bot, if Google shared it with anybody else.
The fucking Candid bot.
They didn't act like none of the fucking special learning software or whatever it was called, something learning software, AI programs or whatever. All buzzwords.
Yeah, it's just buzzwords. Just ignore it.
Just all the shit no, because I hate that, because I can understand when they're saying learning algorithm. The problem is that they don't actually want it to learn all the way. They just, like you said before when we talked about the Soft podcast, they shut it off after they think they get everybody, and then realize that the net is never going to be wide enough, so they just start putting people on a blacklist with it. And it's like we have machine learning. It's actually just we it's like taking a human brain, lobotomizing all the parts that don't fucking suck your dick, and
it's more than it's all it is just statistics software on a larger scale
that they cover it in buzzwords and then throw it at people until it sounds cool. But Discord is if people report you on a server, so that means only one SAW infiltrator can go into any of the alt-right servers and ruin them. Even though they did nothing. They shut down the Discord server for the alt-right, for the alt-right.com, and it's like, dude, you guys have no idea how many alt-right servers there are.
Yeah, you just don't fucking know.
The network is beyond, they want to keep thinking that this is some kind of, underground resistance movement like Zion from the fucking Matrix or some shit, all of humanity against the machines in one place, hidden beneath the earth. It's like, no. Nah, they're fucking everywhere. I need to
stamp this out.
I need to Photoshop neo-Nazi symbols on pictures from the Skaven underworld or something now. But they
just Vermintide or whatever.
Yeah, just go play Vermintide, have fun. But Discord's trying to stamp out stuff like that, or they're at least making a token effort. And Firefox, of all people, which is really weird, and then Chrome, of course, because it's Google, and Edge, because Microsoft are a bunch of cucks. All three of them have said that they're fighting censorship after... they're not fighting censorship. They're going to fight the alt-right and neo-Nazism and everything else after the rise of the alt-right in Charlottesville, because that was just so fucking horrible. And what it really looks like it's doing is they're just removing different apps from their web stores and censoring search results and stuff. And it's they don't all they're doing is fucking themselves in the ass, because nobody uses Edge. Chrome is just Chrome was a joke because the only thing it did better than any other platform was be fast, and Chromium exists. And there's literally no reason not to use Waterfox as opposed to Firefox. So everybody's going to Opera, everybody's going to Vivaldi, everybody's using Chromium, everybody's getting Waterfox now.
Yeah.
Some people are even using Safari instead, because for some goddamn reason, Apple, Apple is not, going along with any of this. I don't understand how that works. I think Apple is either either changed demographics and how it's run, or it's run by a bunch of fucking sorcerers. Because they fucking, figured out how to sell products explicitly to idiot normies and SJWs, and then never went along with any of their politics.
Yeah. It's the magic of, figuring out how doublethink works.
The actual capitalists work for Macintosh.
Maybe.
Of course. We should have known.
Or just maybe, they very early realized that whoever weighs in on this, the second they weigh in on this, you're just sticking your head out for the executioner. Yeah. This is one of those situations where you just step back and you pretend like you were never there to begin with.
Well,
and you hope that nobody fucking notices that you're there.
I hope it's the case now. I hope that's the case now, so at least there's somewhere somebody somehow is making some fan art of Lich King Steve Jobs.
We need to get the normies going for open source operating systems.
Sorry, I'll just wrap my point is, if you know that getting involved in this entire shit show is a no-win scenario for your company, why would you get your company involved in it?
Well, I guess, but like I guess the more applause goes to them for the fact that they understand it's a no-win scenario, because Google, Firefox, like Microsoft, none of them seem. Well, Microsoft kind of is too bigger than God, so I guess they can afford to make mistakes. But Google and the rest of them, like even as big as they are, they don't seem to understand that, like, you know, you can't fight you can't fight a tsunami.
No.
Just because you can stand up, you can stand up during high tide doesn't mean you can fight a tsunami.
Yeah, I applaud. I applaud. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm going to say this. I applaud Apple. There, I fucking said it.
Yeah, good job, guys. You managed to scam hipsters for like 20 years now.
Yep. My god, I should have known. He was really a genius. No, he stole Wozniak's soul and like made him figure out like he made Steve Wozniak into a golem and used it as a phylactery.
Yeah.
He lives forever in the heart of the Apple building, pretending to run the board, like pretending that he's dead. He's actually like running the board of directors.
He didn't actually have cancer. He was just becoming a lich.
Yeah. That was just his ritual suicide as part of the completion of the process.
Yeah, no, he was a cancer mage, is what it was.
Yeah, no, that's even worse, because they're not even mages. They just give you cancer. They just call them that because no one understands how they work.
No, but we need to get people like not just doing like distributed website hosting, like a different kind of internet. With like possibly even like a backbone, like a new IP, like a new internet protocol that works better to support this kind of website hosting. But we also need to start getting people more into, like not Microsoft or Apple, but like Linux and like Solaris and so on. Like there are like so many goddamn different open source like operating systems out there. Like really, you have so many options, and it's just people just choose none of them because I guess it's overwhelming to have to be like
in the near future when everyone has computer science degrees, so everyone can make their own version of the Linux operating system.
And none of them have jobs.
Do you think are we gonna watch like Bill Gates come out in real time and admit all of his flaws before exploding like Ark of the Covenant style? Like he just looks at all of these people not using Microsoft products and goes, no! And then like his face melts off or something.
No, it's gonna be like the end of the fucking Dark Crystal where it's like, I am still the Emperor, blah, and then he fucking evaporates or something.
Yeah. Well, yeah. There's gotta be I mean, that's the least we can do for Bill Gates. Because, I mean, you and I discussed this before, but I'm pretty sure, like, he was a dude that didn't want to do evil things. He's just really mad that nobody respected him for being a good man initially.
Like no one respected how nice a dude he was in the 90s.
Yeah, so we should probably... He at least deserves a good supervillain death.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, come on. He's the hero that fell from grace. This is like,
and nobody noticed because they were like, "Ha, beta."
Yeah, archetypically, Bill Gates has to have like a redeeming death. It is destined. It is written in the stars.
Fucking Jordan Peterson somewhere is just like, "Yes, I told you about this."
It was foretold.
All right. Speaking of,
now I really want to see Jordan Peterson saying it was foretold.
It was foretold. He doesn't even do it. He doesn't even do it in his like passive aggressive. Just like it was foretold. Now I'm angry about the Nazis. Kermit the Frog jokes. Peter Pan. Like instead of just him straight just Jordan Peterson and like fucking like
he gets on a fucking like robe and like
on an altar with a sacrificial knife, like it was foretold, like screaming to the heavens.
I got a question for you guys. Who do you think's the bigger hipster at this point, Josh Whedon or Dan Harmon?
Nobody knows who Dan Harmon is, so probably Josh Whedon. because the word
Dan
hipster
Harmon
is-
might be a bigger hipster, but he'll never out-cuck Joss Whedon.
No, Joss Whedon is still a cuck despite the fact he was constantly cucking his own wife.
No, like that's what I mean. Is like he will never be as big of a cuck as
Like-
Joss Whedon. It's impossible. You can't do it.
I love that. Like that, just Joss Whedon was fucking around so often and so badly that his ex-wife was just like, "No, this guy's a faggot," and everyone, like all the SJW media, was just like, he was a white male." Like they aren't even making a big deal about it because they're like, "It was a white male. It's to be expected." Like there's not a call to dump him.
He warned
from
us
Marvel.
about himself by his virtue signaling.
People for some unholy reason are still watching Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Like, come on.
Is that even still airing?
Yes!
I honestly don't know.
Yeah, like, alright, we just went on a giant fucking, like, nerd-spurg rant about, like, Steve Jobs using, like, Steve Wozniak as a phylactery, but I'm pretty sure Joss Whedon is the one who actually achieved immortality. It's like, as long as there's bad television, he will live.
Yeah, and as long as people still, like, suck his dick about how, like, you know, Firefly, and then what was the other fucking...
I wonder, in the light of this, does this mean that, like, the woman, whatever her name is, the girl that played River Tam that became, like, the fan meme
The fan meme of, like, the
that,
ultimate
like,
Mary Sue?
That, like, you know, was like the giant space flea from nowhere at the last minute of Serenity, like...
Yeah.
It's like, I wonder, like, did she get that role and get all of that attention all the time and all that, all like, for that character because she was sucking his dick in the background or something? Or was it something else? Because
No, she was pegging him in the background.
Probably.
Yeah. Like, what was the one about the fucking clones? Where they're assassins?
Dollhouse or something?
That was shit. It was terrible. I hated it.
No. You know, the one that, even though his most diehard fans still won't forgive him for Alien Resurrection. The man made a movie.
You.
The man made an Alien movie with Ron Perlman in it bad. Like, how do you fuck up that horribly?
Yeah, like, you fuck up by just making Ron Perlman a meme instead of, like, an actual character. That's how you fuck up.
Levels of fucked up. Number 1, China. Number 2, Joss Whedon. Oh, that's terrible. Garam, I'm sorry. We have ruined this. This is the worst cast we've ever done.
I just had a
every cast we do is the worst cast we've ever done.
Apollo will reappear to us like in spirit, like astrally projecting.
I have a very important
from across
question.
the wilds of Poland, and he will call us.
We have to go onto a vision quest to seek Apollo's wisdom.
Find Apollo's bitch and have him call us faggots.
Oh, that was so long ago now.
Yet nobody knows who he is. Swade never even met him. That's why it's funny.
Yeah.
So I got a very important question here. Who would win in a fight? A xenomorph or Hellboy?
Hellboy. Yeah.
Are you fucking kidding me?
Is that even a fucking question?
One is just a highly lethal alien. The other one is fucking the devil.
Literally the Prince of Hell.
Like, the dude who looked at Yog-Sothoth and said, nah. Come on. Alright, we're too overboard. So, back on topic.
Level 3 of fucked up, Zack Snyder's ability to get a movie reviewed well.
Yeah, fucking Zack Snyder making a movie that isn't shilled to death by people who hate conservatism.
People who just hate Zack Snyder is what it is.
Oh my god, that's such a shit show. But whatever. I've yelled at my brother about that enough. Alright, Dan Harmon.
Harmon.
Take it away before we fucking, kill you. This is too spectacular.
People think I'm the retard some days.
It's me. I promise, it's me.
You
guys just... See, you guys are the brains of this podcast. You guys just put up with me because I'm the one who does all the editing.
It's like those pictures where, it's the fucking, feels guy with the huge brain, except you can't do fucking editing. He's too intelligent.
He's too intelligent. It's because his brain is so big he uses it as an easy chair.
Well, riding an elephant of it. Okay,
the elephant is also his brain.
Okay, yeah. Who the fuck is Dan Harmon again?
So Dan Harmon is
he's
one
the
of the.
producer.
Oh wait, no,
Wait, no,
Rick
no,
and
fuck
Morty.
you, Stu. No, I'm the one explaining this story.
Rick and
It's
Morty.
mine.
Now I
Mine.
remember.
Garum,
Okay.
go fast
Yes.
before Swade goes on a rant about Xavier Renegade Angel.
Okay.
Ah.
So, anyways, he was at a con, and he may or may not have been highly inebriated. I mean, the degree of inebriation is debatable, but what we can all agree on is he was fucking on something.
I love
Yes.
how degenerated cons have become to this point where they just let that shit happen.
Yeah, no kidding. So, anyways, he goes on this fucking, like, 5-minute long tirade about how...
Tirade?
Tirade. Whatever, however you want to pronounce
This
it.
5-minute long TIE fighter.
Yeah.
Stop.
No.
No. All right. Firstly, the sound is wick, 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 and
Oh, yeah,
secondly,
wick,
shut
wick,
the
wick.
fuck up.
Well, it
Okay,
depends
no.
on if it's coming towards you or going away
God
from
damn
you.
it! Just
Why can you even hear stuff in space? I don't know.
it's Star Wars. It's not in space. It's
Just don't fucking talk about it.
No.
It's all in. Who knows?
direct
Who
all of
fucking
your
knows?
direct all of your Star Wars related questions to Joseph Campbell and his book, The Hero with a Thousand Faces. He will
explain why there's sound in space.
He will over-explain archetypes until you stop caring about sound in space and go, "Wow, I know more about myself than before I ever knew of this guy."
So,
Oh, God.
anyways,
Okay.
so
We
he went
are
on
really
this-
drunk.
Jeez, I'm the one who's done 6 shots of tequila so far.
Oh, you
Good
lightweight.
God, man!
This is actually really good tequila. Now,
I mean,
anyways,
all
so
I had
he went
was
on
a-
this.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Sorry, yeah. We keep on trying to get distracted here. I might as well just be the one to distract us. Anyways, so he went on this.
Tirade.
Who's Dan
5-minute
Harmon
tirade.
again?
5-minute tirade about Nazis and Rick and Morty and his giant penis or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and he just he basically said it was amazing to watch himself wind himself up, and in the end, he's talking about how the time for dialogue is over. Anyone who voted
And he was
for
just
Donald Trump
sputtering
is
and
a
frothing at the
literal
mouth.
Nazi, and that we need to rise up and overthrow these people in a
Yeah.
civil war.
Yes. Rick and Morty
every-
fans, just come on.
And
Get out on
everyone
the
in the room
streets
pretty much
and
jumped out of the
punch the nearest
chairs
cop
and
in
went,
the face.
"Yeah, this is a great idea."
And then
Everyone stood up and clapped, and then a bald eagle landed on the Soviet flag and shed a single tear.
like, it was so fucking weird. Like, that video was surreal because he got off stage with, like, the mic in one hand and he was sweating beer. Like, I swear, like, it's just this fat dude with a beard sweating beer, like, out of his forehead, like, "Oh, the Trump administration dialogue," and like, oh my god, dude. Like,
You can't talk to Nazis.
And
They'll only subvert
the audience
you with their
is
reasoned
losing their
arguments.
shit, and the rest of the panel is just kind of terrified. Like, the rest of the panel was like all the voice actors and the writers and everything, like half, like, kind of halfway, like, appreciating him, and the other half of them being like, it's like, I agree with this, but Jesus Christ, dude. Time
Yeah.
and a place.
We're here to fucking talk about it. We're here to show for our stupid show. Come on.
Yeah, and, like, when I say he went ballistic, he fucking went ballistic. And, like, not long after that, and I didn't put this on the list, but because it happened relatively recently, Salon wrote an article outright calling for civil war. So I'm wondering how long until they get shut down. Because
Well,
I don't think you're allowed to get away with that in writing.
No, Salon is shutting itself down pretty much
Yeah,
at the moment.
no,
they
like,
can't.
they
They're
don't
being
have
sued.
money.
Yeah, they're being sued by their former landlords.
Mhm.
They had to move office
They
buildings. 'cause
can't kill
couldn't
me if
afford-
I kill me.
No, no. They're killing themselves pretty well. So they couldn't afford their rent at one building, so they left and went to another building. Except they hadn't paid all the rent they were due to the previous landlords or something. So they're being sued by their previous landlords, and now it looks like they can't even afford the rent at their new place.
Amazing.
Which raises a question: why does Salon even need an office?
I don't know, probably so that the editors can get blowjobs.
So they can
from all
feel
the
like they're an
interns.
actual newspaper or something?
Yeah.
So
Man-
they can pretend they're not just some fucking
Man,
like,
remember when like
tabloid.
Remember when like House of Cards was new and edgy, and there was like this scene in like was it the first season or second season where they introduced this fucking like this news firm that one of the characters goes and starts working for after she gets fired from like conventional media place or whatever. It's like, welcome to Slugline. And the entire
Slugline.
It was called Slugline, and the entire place,
amazing.
like the entire the entire company was just this giant like backhanded, like just this kind of like giant backhanded like shitting on alternate media.
Yeah,
but it was like. But it's like, it was by the same people that are now trying to support those places where it's like, oh yeah, look, this is our office. And it's like, it was like an office, it was like a floor of an office building that looked like shit. Like, it looked like there was hippies living there.
It was like built out of like a fucking like abandoned factory they just shoved cubicles in.
And yeah, but it's like on the outside it's a regular office building, but on the inside it looked like for the set they had literally just repainted like an abandoned warehouse. And to make it look like there was an office that they had taken the cubicles out of and then filled it with beanbag chairs and shit. And it was like, wait a second. You guys want, like, I know, like, modern media is shit, but you want us to seriously believe that, like, you know, millennial journalists actually do post their articles while on their iPads? Because that's retarded. Like, and then, lo and behold, why do they need an office? Why do they need an office?
Who knows?
Probably so the editor can get blowjobs from all the interns that are like, well, you need to put my paper on the front. I have no real skills. So, now on to something horrific and terrible and something that only Suede can fully explain. 8chan is dying. We've talked about this for a while now, but it's really getting bad now.
They failed to reach critical mass. And they're just bleeding out users and, you know, actual people and so on.
Yeah.
And they're not making enough money from the, you know, the selling of personal information that they got bought out by the Japanese for the purpose of.
Fucking
So
should we call him Hiroshima, Nagasaki, or Mook?
Mook. He will always be Mook to me. He is Gook Moot. And that is final.
Your friend who came up with that must be proud.
Oh yeah, it was really good. But no, it's like, yeah, it's they failed to reach critical mass such that, like, you know, they had enough diversity of, you know, I don't want to use like diversity like a buzzword, but like enough diversity of opinion.
Yeah,
and
that's what I'm about to say. It's like, you know, there's some variety of diversity people really like. It's diversity of opinion.
Yeah, enough to be consistently interesting to people so that more people will come, and the people that do come will want to stay, even if they don't agree with the majority opinion, because there are things there that they do like and they do enjoy. And, like, part of that is just the ability to make your own board so easily. It makes it very difficult to concentrate people into these, like, these greater, like, bundles of like, critical social
areas
mass,
of high
I guess
concentration,
you could say.
go to low concentration.
Yeah, like that's kind of the problem.
And
with,
further
like,
than that, the bigger problem.
Format.
The bigger problem is that Poll has gone so completely far up its own ass that it won't.
Yeah.
It will not self-criticize.
It just absolutely refuses to.
Yeah, so like the mainstay argument against that is just going like the whole Poll is a hive mind. It's like implying Poll is a hive mind. It's like, yes, it is a hive mind. You guys, like, almost never fucking argue with one another. You just decide things.
Yeah.
Like, you only ever argue about poll shit when you go to other people's boards and tell them that they're wrong.
That has any different set of, like, prior assumptions. You always only, like, go, like, hey, based on everything we already agree on, what is this? Oh, well, that's this. Okay, our debate over.
Yeah.
There's no more conversation. It's
fucking,
just...
What?
Just
TV
conclusion
has been...
after conclusion with, like, no actual discussion. With no actual debate.
TV, like, Poll is Poll. B is trash. Fucking TV has been TV has been systematically fucking Like, TV has systematically been more poll than poll since, like, 2014. Fucking K is just a never-ending shit show of Slavs fighting off wereaboos. TG is dead, is functionally dead, because it's nothing but people that are wanking off the new canon because they want to believe, like, oh, my humanity, fuck yeah, my manifest destiny, like,
humanity, fuck yeah, is
cancer.
It's one of the worst things to ever happen to TG. The worst being, I think, quests.
The scourge of quests. Quest threads. As far as the eye can see.
They were eventually cast off into the Darklands of /quest/. But
and then on 4chan they don't even use the quest board. They keep making them on TG and no one stops them. Because the moderation teamers a bunch of idiots.
You mean on 8chan? Because on 4chan is what I mean. Like, yeah, but now they have the quest board where you have to make quests there.
They did that on 4chan and they're still making quests.
And they keep fucking doing it.
Yes,
they just don't stop.
Because since fucking Mook took over, half the moderation team is a bunch of Japanese otaku shitbags that don't read English. So they just ignore all the complaints they get because they can't fucking understand
you have your own board now. The only reason they keep making quest threads on TG is because no one wants to go to Quest to look at your quest threads. So you have to force them down everyone else's throat to make it so they're the only content anyone fucking sees. Because everyone else is just sick of your shit.
Yep.
Like, no one wants to go to Quest to look at quests, so you just have to, basically just go out and, publicly urinate to get attention on other boards.
And then you
that
realize
is what quest threads are doing.
And you don't even realize that that's not even working, because there's also, 10 other people publicly urinating on the same wall.
Yeah. No, that is what that's what quest fags are. They're just those guys that walk around in trench coats and flash you to get attention because you didn't like them on Facebook and you didn't go to their house when they were when they left fucking writing on a bathroom stall or something for a good time, call so and so. They're just completely starved for attention.
And
so they just refuse. They just ignore the rules.
And the reason why this all comes back around to it is that 4chan was the beating heart of all the pushback that fucking 8chan and 4chan, mostly 8chan, was the beating heart of all the pushback that happened during the Trump election. And it's say what you will about the Donald and Reddit and everything else, but 8chan was the one that the majority of the time was sitting there going, no, we're not going to be fucked with by the paid shills. But at the same time, the shill meme, as much as it insulated them against that, it also fucking ruined everything. Because they just declare anybody who doesn't immediately agree with white nationalism a shill, and then there's no discussion to be had, because all of the moderators are also Polacks. They just ban you if you make more than 3 posts disagreeing with people.
Everyone that doesn't agree with me is Hitler, except now it's everyone that doesn't agree with me is a shill. It's stupid. And the thing, that's what I really think it is as much that as, they don't concentrate people into boards in such a way that, they kind of acquire, a diverse taste just by being forced to, excuse me, I'm sorry. By being forced to, do what they enjoy on a board with things that other people enjoy that are kind of similar. Because instead you can make, a million fucking boards on, 8chan, and then you get 5 users each where they're just catering to a very specific niche. And no one ever finds any of those boards because they're buried under 100 different boards that do exactly the same thing.
Yep.
It's just I love the idea of making your own board, but until your website acquires critical mass and people are you have boards that are actually a sufficient number of boards even with sufficiently diverse, not just opinion, but sufficiently diverse interests, such that it'll be self-sustaining that way. It's not a good idea to say you can just make your own boards now.
Yep.
It just sounds like
until it acquires its own culture and so on, where there'll be standards that it will develop based on its own unique Chan culture for how new boards should be made and what the the code of the unspoken code of ethics for that is.
Yeah, I guess we have to move on from that because it's all just
Kind of
dying
running out
now.
of time here.
No, we don't have a time limit. We just say that to fuck with people.
Yeah, one day we're gonna upload that one 24-hour long podcast.
It's just the sounds of me chewing for 13
no,
hours, and then we have a conversation about guns for 3 hours, and then
It's not even gonna be that. It's gonna be a recording of each of us doing random stuff throughout the day, and there's 8 hours of us sleeping and just snoring for 8 hours, and it's whatever dumb lectures I have that day, and then you at work, and then Garam at work. And then we go home and it's just dinner, and then we get online and it's 2 hours of us watching YouTube or playing fucking dumb Darkest Dungeon or something. And then at the very end for 1 hour the actual podcast happens.
I'm just gonna keep this 50 gig file on my computer. I'll totally open that in Adobe Premiere and not immediately destroy my my RAM. That'll work.
Yeah, that'll work.
I'm pretty sure that is the surefire way. With GPU acceleration, I'm pretty sure that's a surefire way to kill a graphics card is trying to render that whole thing. But
oh god.
Anyway,
yeah, you're just gonna have to buy 200 gigs of RAM.
Yeah.
To fucking process this video.
Just for the sake of this one meme.
Yeah, this one single meme.
Anyway. So, last thing we have for drama and sociopolitics. Garam, do you know who Chris Hedges is?
The name seems familiar, but I can't just... Sorry.
He's been a talking head before. He's had apparently people want him to debate Ben Shapiro, which would be fucking hilarious. Because I don't like Ben Shapiro, but Chris Hedges is just a windbag. And I don't mean that in the old Republican sense where people are like, hey, it's just a windbag. He just says shit. He's not actually... I mean, the dude is fake as fuck. And he and a bunch of other people have been going on to NPR to give their opinions about Charlottesville, and NPR, it keeps trying to act it's we're gonna give, alternate viewpoints to this whole thing. See what every side has to say, and it's nothing but people being fucking neo-Nazis, neo-Nazis, neo-Nazis. It's yeah, you guys didn't even try, did you?
Well, it's NPR. I mean, at this point, NPR has so alienated half the country. I'm not surprised that the only people listening to them are a bunch of raving people who just...
Which was hilarious when you consider that, 4 or 5 years ago, a lot of the liberals I knew considered NPR to be soft-core Republican.
Yeah.
So... Swade, what do you have to say about Chris Hedges?
Nothing.
Oh, wow.
Nothing at all.
He deserves nothing.
He deserves nothing. He will get nothing.
He had a speech that was just nothing but buzzwords and virtue signaling at one point, and people thought it was amazing. And it's they don't realize that this dude that's acting like he's radical, actually a radical left wing, and thinks that there needs to be an armed revolution and stuff and blah 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 before even that term became cool.
No, he's just a fucking
asshole. He was a dude who misreported shit on purpose about Iraq and lied.
Oh wait, yeah, sorry, I kind of was yeah, that fucker. I was kind of not paying attention for a bit, I'm sorry. No, yeah, fucking Chris Hedges.
Ever.
Fucking Chris Hedges. He misreported so many fucking things, and then, when it came out that he misreported it, his only defense of it was, I didn't want to do the story anyways, I was just doing it for a friend.
Yeah.
That is literally the world's worst excuse.
No,
yeah,
because he got completely conned by, this random fucking Iranian. I think it was Iran. Maybe wasn't he Iranian?
It was an Iraqi dude.
Iraqi, yeah.
Remember this was the no, that's not the Pakistan thing. It was the Iraqi guy that patsied somebody else.
Yeah,
he patsied an AIDS worker or something, not an aid worker or something, and got a cushy retirement in the U.S.
No. Yeah, that was the thing with Osama bin Laden getting assassinated.
Oh yeah, I'm getting that confused. He patsied somebody else.
No. What I'm talking about is when the Iraqi defectors to the United States, right?
Yeah.
He ran an article about how there was an Iraqi general that defected to the United States and was claiming that he had taught Al Qaeda members how to hijack planes, and that was like how to hijack planes, and like he had trained the Mujahideen in terrorism.
The Mujahideen.
I can't fucking pronounce things. The Mujahid, whatever. He trained those guys.
The mullahs. It was obviously them.
He trained Mook how to hijack planes, and Mook did 9/11.
Mook did 9/11. You're saying the Mujahideen.
So he ran an article about how this Iraqi general had been training terrorists to hijack planes and to blow things up and make bombs and like dirty bombs and so on. And this was the pretext for like war with Iraq.
Yeah.
But then it turned out like first off that never happened, right? And he just got taken for a ride by this random dude who was just like scamming him and like working for like, you know, some intelligence agency or another. Second off, he wasn't even an Iraqi general. He was just some random fucking enlisted man that just made up a story and sold it to Chris Hedges. And like because this was right after September 11th, like the impact of the story, like everyone was republishing it, like everyone was like talking about it and running it. And like this was almost like, you know, this was a major part of the lead-in to like us going to war in Iraq, right?
Yeah.
The war on terror and so on. And then it turns out at the end, like, you know, it was all just bullshit. So rather than taking responsibility for that, he just passes the blame on to everyone. And then nowadays you see him talking about how, oh, we should have never gone to war with Iraq. It was a mistake. It was all the media hype was just fake, completely glossing over the fact that he was one of the major parts of, like, one of the major players in the media that actually got people, like, convinced, like, the public convinced we need to go to Iraq. That it was, like, despite his anti-war on terror state nowadays, he was not only supportive of it back then, but he was actively, like, he was one of the people who actually gave us, like, casus belli for it in the first place, like, with the articles he published.
Yep. Man's a fucking piece of shit. Because, like, he like, all of his stuff was, if you've ever listened to him talk, and, like, Garam, I recommend you do, because it would be funny. He's a fucking, like, he has nothing. No content to any of his speeches, no content to anything he says, except, like, you know, buzzwords and virtue
and sophistry.
And sophistry, yes.
Yeah.
Sophistry. Sophistry is the art of creating sofas.
Yeah, sophistry.
But, just...
Speaking of people I don't quite know of, who is this on the agenda? Karl Popper?
I thought we would bring him up last because you wanted to talk about Trudeau and Pelosi. And also, Suede growls like a dog whenever you say the words Karl Popper.
I wasn't growling, I was sighing deeply. it just sounds like that because I'm like, phlegmatic. I have tons of phlegm.
Okay, Sticks. Rattle your teacup.
I don't have a spoon here. See if I can get this going.
There it is.
There we go. We got the spoon clank.
Yeah,
We're good.
anyway, Justin Trudeau.
Justin Trudeau actually. Okay, so apparently the media's been playing this up. I'm not quite sure how true it is. Considering they haven't really talked about any of the effects of this, I tend to believe that this is complete bullshit. But apparently we've had thousands of illegal immigrants fleeing the United States into Canada. No, these are people who illegally entered the United States and now are illegally entering Canada. Justin Trudeau actually had to come out and say, hey guys, can you not fucking do that? Though, of course, in true Justin Trudeau fashion, he can't call them illegal immigrants.
Irregular immigrants.
Yeah, he called them irregular immigrants. You gotta look at people like Justin Trudeau. It's like, do you understand the words that are coming out of your fucking mouth? Do you realize that you've just called them illegal immigrants, but you can't use the word illegal immigrant, but you just called them illegal immigrants? And your rhetoric, funny, you bitch and whine at Donald Trump and all those guys in the border states of not liking the fact that they've got a bunch of irregular immigrants entering their country. Now you've got just a handful of irregular immigrants entering your country, and you're like, we've got to put a stop to this. Compared to what the United States has had to deal with, we've had to deal with no illegal immigration from the United States. And already we've had our Prime Minister come out against it. Just the levels of hypocrisy coming from the modern, the Justin Trudeau style left is mind-boggling. Absolutely fucking mind-boggling. The complete lack of self-awareness is truly awe-inspiring.
Yep. And then there was the Pelosi shit.
Well, Pelosi actually coming out and denouncing Antifa.
Yeah, which means that shit's getting sideways because all the politicians are showing their true colors. As in, they're showing that they're actually politicians.
For months and months and months, they've been talking up Antifa. Antifa finally, after the Berkeley shit, it was a step too far, and they're like, yeah, maybe we need to cut this. No, I really don't give a fuck what these politicians say. What I want to see is next time Antifa shows up, it starts causing trouble, I want the police chief and mayor not to issue a stand-down order. I don't give a fuck what you say. I care about what you do. And standing by as you watch Antifa beat people is just not acceptable.
Yep. It really isn't. But that's not, we can't really say anything more about that. Like, what else are we going to do? No! This is totally acceptable. Law and Order is gay. But, speaking of Law and Order being gay and totally acceptable hypocrisy and whatnot. Swade, do you want to tell Garam who Karl Popper is?
Do I have
to? I've deliberately not Googled this just so I know.
Okay. Like,
now you have to tell him. He's going to sit on your lap and ask you for the storybook.
Here's the thing, right? Karl Popper is actually very well respected as far as scientific philosophy goes. His idea of his ideas of like how falsification works are pretty much universal nowadays, even if they were mostly derivative. The thing is that he also made a lot of very faulty arguments as far as his political argument, as far as his political philosophy goes, that ultimately said what, so many people are saying nowadays, that, there's no point in arguing with Nazis because if they get into power, then they'll set things up so they can't get out of power. Like, people that don't like democracy shouldn't be debated with or considered democratically. And a lot of his reasoning for that is unfortunately considered, unassailable just because of his reputation in other fields of philosophy, even if so much of it is just nonsense. And he actually has a lot of good stuff otherwise, in political science. But he's thought of as some legend of philosophy and political science that is really, I think, undeserved. Also, he's British, or he was British.
And
so
he has to have people make webcomic representations of himself beating up Nazis.
yeah. Well, he's dead, but yeah. It's like I don't know how well I can really explain it. Like, firstly, because political science isn't my field, but like I've read enough of him to know what I disagree with very strongly, and why. But it's one of those things that's like not really suited to like podcast format, I guess. But basically, when you see people bring up Popper lately, it's all just been like misrepresenting his arguments or using his weakest arguments, while ignoring the fact that their own behavior also would fail the litmus test that he came up with for whether or not this is something that's like reasonably like we should be having this allowed in a democratic society.
So basically, you said anything that's not democratic shouldn't be allowed in a democratic.
For people that actively oppose democracy, shouldn't be allowed to speak their views and like have them considered as like things to vote on.
Which, I mean, depending on the way you look at it, he would have had a point when people were like, he might have had a point, or alternatively, he would have also been just as wrong, depending on what side of the fence you were on, when people were having this argument about communists in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, well, California, for example, banned communists from holding.
Yeah, well, like the main thing is, like, it's really just the paradox of tolerance. Like, that is the main thing people keep bringing up. That is just really, just not very much a part of his greater works that are, like actually meaningful. It's also misrepresented as well, because a lot of the time... Sorry, go ahead.
I was supposed to somehow I just imagine the entire system would just evolve into people accusing the other side of being undemocratic.
Yeah, and like that's the thing, is it's that, and then it's the fact that people misrepresent his arguments, which, even if I disagree with them, were much more limited and differently parameterized than like the ways people are trying to use them now, where they're just quoting him without really understanding the context regardless. Not to mention that this came out at like in like the latter stages of World War II. Like, I think it was like 1945. So of course he's going to be talking about like fascism and Nazis, and through the lens of like fuck those guys. Like, they shouldn't exist in a democratic society. We shouldn't allow them to exist. And he really didn't expand on it much, past that. Not the least of which because, well, he didn't live too much longer, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, no, never mind. You know what? No, he actually did live a lot longer. But still, it's...
Did he just stop working after that because his body...
No, he didn't just stop working. It just, he just didn't really go back and, revise and rethink a lot of the ideas he had come up with in Open Society and Its Enemies to the point of really, like, saying, okay, maybe my ideas on, like, the problem of tolerance and, like, the paradox of tolerance and how, tolerance of intolerance is always, going to kill you. I don't know. It's not something that, like, we should really be having a conversation about. Like,
not a perfect solution, but at some point, as I said, it just evolves into people yelling at one another, accusing the other side of being the intolerant. It's like, what's the entire point of tolerance? It's not so much...
Well, it's political philosophy anyways. It's not, like, about scientific...
Nobody cares about philosophy anymore.
Yeah,
nobody.
It's meant to be rational and, like, deductive, not empirical, and so on. Not
like a
Inductive.
pragmatic thing. Like you don't even have to.
No, because if it was like
use-
inductive was actually like the very thing like Popper railed against. He was like, no, it's all about falsification. Inductive reasoning and science is bullshit, which is more or less accepted nowadays. But
Yeah. Well,
this conversation is going nowhere. This podcast is terrible. Let's wrap
this
it up.
podcast is terrible. Let's talk about quantum theory.
No, fuck you. I don't want to have deep conversations in the fucking EdgeCast.
Nah, because
Not tonight.